The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our MWF webinar on MWF Pro Metal. For those who may not know, MWF Pro Metal is our automated Revit wall, floor, ceiling, and truss framing software for light gauge steel modeling. From there, the software can run clash detection, create complete construction documentation like shop drawings and bill of material. We also export to a variety of different CNC machines. During this webinar, we'll show you just that, an overview of MWF. Just a few housekeeping items before I jump into the software. One, anyone who is registered for the webinar will be sent a recording after the conclusion. Please feel free to share this link with anyone that you like. Two, I would also like to remind everyone that you can ask questions throughout the webinar in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. Our technical team will answer your questions as soon as possible. All right, let's jump into our Revit model now. So as you can see here on the screen, I just have a view up of our demo model, and we'll go right into showing some of the framing. I'll flip over to a 3D. In this 3D view, I currently have just the graphics turned on for the walls so that you can see what framing is happening on the inside. If this is the very first time you're ever loading a model that you've gotten from a client, you will go into your Pro tab, and under Settings, you would click Load Data. Here's where you start to load all the information for MWF. I'm not going to load it, I already have, but you can create a template ahead of time with all this information already saved in it. Then you can use that template each time so you do not have to reload. That ends up loading in markers and families and other items needed for MWF to function. Once that's been completed, you can actually start to frame your project. So I'm just going to rotate a little bit here to grab a wall. And the very first thing we're going to do is we go back to our Pro tab and we go up into Create. In this box is where you get your start of your panel. You'll see there's some settings for extensions, for stud offsets. You can make some changes here, but typically most people are just going to go under Template and go either on their disk to get their template, or they can go into the project. I'm just going to choose our default light gauge. You will see that I have wood here available to me as I'm in the Pro Suite version, as I will be doing a wood webinar tomorrow. So I'll choose my light gauge, set it as active, and then we just click Close and we click Create. This template is basically a 2x6 stud at 16 inches on center, and it quickly frames out the back wall. This window that now opens up is actually the main brain for the panel in this wall, and I'll just expand it a little bit so we can see what's going on. In these properties, we've already gone with the basic framing of the template of the 2x6 at 16 inches on center. Now we're making the modifications that we require for this panel. The very first thing we're going to change is the stud justification into structural centerline. This is because that is the layer that we frame inside the Revit wall. I'll show you an example of the Revit wall once we close this out and the reasons why that we change that to centerline. So you have your horizontals, you have your verticals, and your bottom and your top tracks here. For instance, if you need to not split your bottom track, if there was a door, you can uncheck this and it will make a solid track across the bottom for shipping so that your panel doesn't rack. I'm going to leave it on. Then we have the structural tab. In here, there are some more options. You have an option for panel height. If you leave this at -1, it goes right to the top of the wall. If you set it to 8 feet, it will actually frame this wall to 8 feet high, no higher, no lower, exactly 8 feet. We also have first stud offset, so you can shift the pattern in the wall. Under miscellaneous, these are the rest of the options that you have available to you. We have our option for studs to change the stud spacing. We also do have an option here for tracks where you can disable top, disable bottom, or you can do staggers to your bottom if the bottom profile of your wall changes. We also have our opening framing, and this is where you would actually set up a rules map if you had one set so that you could actually automate the process of what happens when certain types of windows go into the walls. I'll show you the rule set later. For now, we'll look at the openings tab, and I'm going to click on use all for openings. If I uncheck this, you'll see there's an option for window, door, and opening. You can define these individually, or for a generic framing, just use for all, and you can change your framing that you need to use here, and then you can add more kings, more headers, more sills, just by choosing whatever you like and clicking add. The general tab will allow us to use the rough dimensions if available in a window or door. If they're already programmed in there, this will frame up to those rough dimensions. If they're not in there, it'll frame to the edge of the window or the edge of the door. Further down, we have end studs where we can override our generals. So if you need multiple studs at one end, multiple at the other, you have repeat, or if you just want to change the family to a thicker gauge or a different shape, you can override them here. We do have another section called structural members. This will allow you to put your members on a benchmark, therefore they can line up with all the rest of the walls in your project. You can also use stud configuration. This will allow us to do normal studs, double stud, back to back, face to face, interlock, or triple. You can change these, and that will actually just change the properties of the wall. We do have a chase wall as well. Further down the list, we have extra studs. That is literally if you wanted to enter a stud somewhere in the wall that you specifically know. Horizontals, I'll quickly add one in here, starting from the start of my panel, going to the end of my panel. So we'll choose my studs, and you'll see here all the members vertically are listed. So I'm going to change it to E2. We're going to grab our member here, so 600. It'll be to the center, and we'll change this to structural center line as well. On this side, right now it's going to be set at 6 feet. If I want this at 4 feet, I can just change it to 4 feet. You can actually add more, and it will divide up by the wall. You just click down to take out less. So we'll put this back to 4. Or you can do spacing, where you can start one at this height at say 2 feet and then space it all the way up from there. So we'll click add, and you'll see the definition comes down in the bottom. So we'll accept that change. Now further down we have bracing, we have K braces, we have MMV braces. I'll just open up the window so you can see what the settings look like. Again, it's just choose your options again on both sides and click add to add it to the panel. MMV is the other style of bracing. You would create new, same thing, choose your options. Further down we have kickers, deflection connectors, we can do extensions. We also have hole series. This will allow you to place a hole in a panel at a certain height. So I do have a round hole here. It's going to be punched out with service hole, and it will go through all these types of members. So we'll also add in one of those for now by offset. So I'm going to say this is at 16 inches from the bottom of my panel, my 1-inch round hole. I click add, it's in there, save. Now, once you've made all these changes, you can click on template. And now this is where, again, you can choose to your disk or your project. If you go to disk, it's saved to your local computer. Anyone physically at your computer has access to this template. If you click on project, it travels with the file. So I personally always use project. Down in here, you can have folders, you can export or import all these settings to carry between projects. I'm actually not going to save this template. I'm just showing you the windows. We do have an update, so if you did want to save the shaft wall and click update, it'll just update that template. Now, you're noticing here I have everything in Imperial. We do have the metric capabilities fully built into Revit. Just this was the file I had available to me at this time. I will show you some metric shop drawings afterwards. So we'll just close this out. So we've made all our changes. I'm going to click OK, and it will finish up framing this wall. And you'll see I have my holes at 16 inches, and I have my horizontal. This is just added to the definition, and if I save it as a template, I can use this over and over. Now, regarding the wall construction, as we're talking about the structural layer, I will just pull this out and we'll show you the makeup of the wall. So here we have one layer in the core that is called structure. It's the only one in the core that can be called structure, and it should be the only one in the core boundary to make your MWF life a lot easier. When it comes to sheathings, some engineers for shear walls will call it structural sheathing. That's great. We will still just give it a function of substrate, and then any other one outside, just continue your functions, but nothing else structural. That is because when MWF frames, it looks for the center layer and it will place the studs in appropriately. So now that we have a panel created and we've saved it to our template, the next part that we have for a little bit of automation to make people's lives easy is we have our template map. This allows you to create multiple maps for different levels, for different sections, for different areas that allow you to take a specific Revit wall and map it to a specific style of framing. So if you look at this here, I have interior partition 6-inch steel wall. That's the Revit wall. And I'm going to use my interior partition 6-inch as my framing template. So with these all set and chosen on the left, I will just click OK. And that now accepts that the template map is in fact in use. So I'm going to go to a floor plan. We'll open this one up here. And I'm going to grab this exterior wall, and I'm going to grab 3 walls that are in interior, and they're different types. You can tell that they're different types because it actually says multiple types selected over in the properties, meaning that I have 4 different ones that are clearly different. Instead of me having to go into Pro Suite and saying create and choose the template, I'm going to let the map do it for me, and I'm just going to click Quick Create. This will then compare them to the mapping, and we will get our framing from the mapping. You can select as many walls as you like. You can select as little walls as you like. It just takes a moment as it's reading all the information and creating the panels. And there we go. You can see I have EXT 118, I have 121, 119, and 120. So these panels have all been created. This one here is an 8-inch. This one is a 4-inch. And the one down here in this exterior wall is a 6-inch. I didn't have to do anything, didn't have to interrupt it in any way. We'll go back to the 3D. You'll see this wall here has already had some framing for the header condition. It already had some bracing. It already put in some holes. This was the template that I had created. If this window were to move by instance, so if I just move the window over to the left, I can grab any member of my panel and use my regenerate tool, and this will now move all the framing to the new location of the window. I don't have to delete it. I don't have to recreate it. I just regenerate it and it moves over. The framing now is controlled by what we call a marker. The marker manager is a tool that we have up here at the top. When I open this, you'll be able to see that I have some markers for openings. I have some markers for joins, and I'll show you the joins afterwards. And we also have framing and assembly. These are what we use to control what happens around a window. So this window right here has a 6-inch box header. I will open this one up. So right now we're getting 2 kings on the left, 1 header, 1 sill, 2 kings on the right. Here's where you can define what type of materials they are or their sizes. If you don't, right now I can't select these because the parameter is unchecked. If you leave that unchecked, it will use the size of the wall. If you want to override it, you'd go into parameter, change it, and then you can override it. So we have a bearing beam in this condition, and it's considered a box beam. If I want to change the orientation of the box beam or change it from a box beam to like an I header, I'll choose type B and you'll get an I shape. If I go to type C, you will get where it's a beam brace at the top. So we have multiple options. You would then just save this as bearing beam brace, or you would save it as bearing beam I. So you can create multiple of these and have them here in your list, as you can see. So I have a 10-inch round duct, a 1-inch round duct, a 2-inch round duct. These can be created, they're duplicated, you can edit them, you can import them and export them as well. Again, once you have all your framing conditions set up, you can actually save this in your master template so you never have to create them again. At the very top up here, we have project and we have our rule sets that I mentioned earlier. The wall opening mapping rule set allows you to bake in what happens if I change the window in my framing. So if I click the plus, you'll see here I now get single window, single door, multiple other options. For single window, I have 3 options of criteria. I can do window type, width, or height. So for width, you can specify the low width, the high width, and once you have that set up, you can even specify what level of the building it's in just by clicking in the box here. You can even specify a specific wall type. Once those are set, you can then choose your framing. So if you choose all your options, and we'll say here from 1 foot to 3 foot, and I'll just grab any framing because I'm just going to give you an example, you'll see it come in. If I add another one, I'll do now 3 foot to 6 foot, and I'll grab a different type of framing box header. So you'll see I get 2 here where it says any level, any type, and it's knowing that it's going to happen. So it'll filter through the list and says if I get this window, this framing, this window, this framing. You just apply that in the properties under the openings, and away you go. So whenever we see default here, you'd actually just copy this, make a new one. That way you have your default one always. So this window, again, we'll just grab it. We'll go under markers, apply opening, and it'll tell me the actual one that I have on here. And again, I can click the box here and it takes me to how to edit this one. If I wanted to change this, I would just change it through the side there. So that's a little bit about the window markers. We'll go in here to the floor again, and you'll see I have these nice arrows at all my corners. These are what are defining our join conditions. Joins can be placed manually or automatically. I'll show you how we place a join. You just grab 2 walls and you will just go to joins and place it. You get a list of joins that you have available to you, so you can look through your list of your different framing conditions. I like this one, for instance. I'll click OK. That'll place my marker. If I frame this now, I will get the framing to come out in that corner as the catalog had shown. So I'll just show you the example here. So there is a proper join at the corner. The little dot right there would be where Revit would like to join the walls. If I didn't have this join condition, I'd actually get 2 studs on top of each other, making a cross. Now, if you didn't like the orientation of the join, you can click the marker, go back under your Pro tab, go to your joins, and you have set main wall. Click your main wall. It'll actually rotate the join, and then it will regenerate each panel to the new condition as so. So now that you've placed one, you want to place multiple at one time. You can actually just select all your walls. Again, you would create your auto join rule. I already have one created, so I'm just going to click auto join, choose my rule, click select, and it's now going to analyze for T conditions of certain types of walls, put in the T condition, and for any corners, put in a corner condition. So it puts them in, and then you would just frame and regen, and you would get the new corner conditions. So that's a little bit more about the joins. Other markers that we have available to us, we have a split marker. The reason why you might be asking, we have a split marker. Well, if an architect gives you a wall that's 35 feet long and you're panelizing this, you're not going to panelize a 34-foot wall. You could if you had a large shipping container, but we want to make this into separate pieces. So we have a tool up under markers called split by rule. This will open up a dialog box that gives you a minimum panel length, a maximum panel length, and then an opening tolerance. Opening tolerance means if this marker falls on a door, how do I react? I want to go 4 inches one way or 4 inches the other way, respecting my 2 foot and my 10 foot. And then you get to choose which side that you're looking from. So I've already split this wall. If I frame this, my framing will go from this panel to the marker as one panel and then another panel, so on and so forth. So we're going to panel this one up by hitting Quick Create. Again, it's reading all the materials, it's reading the wall, it's reading all the conditions of the doors, and creating our panels for us, like so. Now, in the case of multi-layer, you actually need to break the actual wall because your sheathing does not cross from panel to panel. So I'll grab an exterior wall over here. This exterior wall is a total of 42 feet. I have some break marks that are just equal. Same thing, we go up back under markers and we have wall splitter. This happens really quick. I then just get 3 pieces of wall where my marker would have been. I could actually put a gap in here had I defined it in my marker. So this now then, if I grab the wall and I'm going to go to my multi-layer side of things, I'm going to look at my settings for this wall of exterior 6-inch steel stud, which I have right here, and it's already defined that it's going to have a 6-inch exterior wall, 16 inches on center with 4x8 sheathing. Now that I know that that's mapped that way, I'm going to go to my 3D, I'm going to rotate around, and I'm going to just grab the 2 other walls here, and we'll quickly frame these 2. Instead of using the Quick Create on this side, we go under Operations and we click Quick Create. Doing the exact same thing, reading the wall, reading the windows, reading the framing, the information that we put in, and it's creating them. It just takes a moment because it also does the sheathing. And just so you know, I'm running this demo off of a laptop. So as long as you meet the requirements for actual Revit usage, MWF doesn't task it that much more on top. So we've got 1 already created, the second one should come in, and then the third one will come in as well. And then once these are created, I'll turn the walls off and you can actually see the sheathing and the framing behind. Should be 2 more seconds. There we go. So we'll hide our walls, and you'll see here if I grab a couple pieces of the sheathing will go transparent, and you can see our framing behind. You'll also notice the sheathing is lined up to the proper framing. I did that through the framing settings and told it what to line up to. We were just using a regular staggered, a regular sheathing pattern. If you wanted to change your sheathing pattern, you can go up under sheathing templates. You can grab any of your templates here, modify, and then you can choose the size of your sheathing that you have available to you by changing the family. You can change extensions around the panel. You can tell it the material. You can tell it how to react around openings if you wanted it to automatically pull back. Layout, we have basic tiled, we have horizontal staggered, and we have vertical staggered, and right now they're lining up to vertical stud and crippled stud. So those are just some of the options, and you can create different types depending on your different sheathings if they have to line up to different items. We do also do nail lines for CNCing. We also have secondary templates, which if you needed to add a layer of furring or a Z-girt across your panel, you can add these here as you do want them part of your shop drawings. The structural templates are the templates that you have available to you, and your map is here. Again, you can create multiple maps. You can import, export maps along projects. This one is just a little more graphical compared to the regular wall. So that's a little bit on the multi-layer. The next part we're going to go to is we're going to go to some interior walls. Just open up a 3D here. We'll close that one. So I have a nice 3D view here with some transparencies on again. In a lot of building now, if we have repeatable units that happen to be in model groups, we can handle the framing of these model groups. Just grab the model group, whether there's a door or furniture in it, and if we do our quick create, which I set up a shortcut key of QC, it will then parse this model group and only look for the walls, and it will frame the walls individually. I do get new tags on them that are individual for the item. Now, I've got 3 more groups beside. I can push this framing using my modular tools, saying copy members on all identical groups. It'll find the groups in my project and push the exact same framing without me having to choose templates or anything across those items. So you can actually frame out 100% and push them all the way across. You see they all get individual tags, so 32, 34, 36, 38. If you needed to make a change to one of these, just grab your panel, go in and make your change. So I'm gonna say triple up this stud for some reason. We'll go to extra studs. That stud happens to be my S3 from my properties. So we'll move this over, go to repeat modify, grab my S3. I want one to the left, one to the right, and I'm going to invert the one to my right. I'm going to click add, and then just apply it to my panel. So you can make individual changes even though these were on a group. This is still individual of the rest. Now, I want these 3 changes on this group. The second one, this group right here. Grab this group. Actually, we'll grab this one first, and we'll go up under modular and say copy members from group, copy this group, and it will make those same 3 changes without me having to do the 10 clicks that it took. So that's just a little bit on the copy modular. If you have a repeatable unit, it makes your life a little easier. Do one, send it across the rest. So that will be a little bit on some of the interior side of things. Now we'll go into some clash detection. So I'm just going to orientate my view here. I've got one wall is already framed, which is fine. I can actually grab these walls at any time and just select the walls that I want to be able to clash detect. Actually grab the wall and not the stud. So we'll grab that one, this one, and we'll grab these other 2 over here. So I've already set up a rule. We have our interference here called clash detection. I'll pull it to the left. I'll choose my rule set. The rule set again says if a certain item on the right is of a certain size, I want a certain tolerance around it, all totally set up that you can, in the rule set, you can change it according to widths and diameters. So once I click this and click the check mark, you'll see I actually get, I need to have the actual MEP selected. Go back into interference, clash detect, and click the checkbox. It'll punch Revit wall openings in all my walls. So I have 3 openings here, another one there. These openings already get stamped with the marker. So if I look at apply opening type, you can see I already have a marker of framing. I can then just grab the wall, do my quick create, and it will frame around these according to that definition. And we'll zoom in on them and you can see. So there we have a nice simple one. Over here we get to 2 verticals and our horizontals go to nearest. Same thing here. It maintains the spacing and gives us our framing. Now, the wall that already was framed, you can see here that my framing still runs through the wall. All I do is grab any member of the panel and go up and regenerate like we did with the window, and this will now frame out this wall according to these new openings and new markers. So I will just grab the wall here so that it highlights out, and you can see we now have the framing that doesn't go through where the ducts are. Now you might be wondering what happens if the engineer moves something. Well, you'd have to delete the opening and rerun the clash, or you can just grab the opening and align it over. It does not create a dynamic link to the item. So that when one moves, the other one moves. If that were to happen, you'd be sitting behind your computer waiting for regenerations whenever something happened. This way, we force it when we know we want to make the change. So that's through wall clashing. We also have an in-wall clash for piping. So I'm just going to remove one item here, grab the wall and quick create, and we'll put a sample framing in. Now this is very, very simple, simplistic. I have a simple pipe running through the wall. I'm going to grab any member here, and we're going to go up under our Pro tab, back to our interferences, and we're going to check that we have our clash mapping. So we're going to uncheck the items that we're not worried about. I'm going to go to my pipe. I have a pipe called water supply, and I'm going to put a slot hole of 1.5 inches round. So that's already been set up. Then we'll go to our definition, and we have the definition called water supply. If I click modify, we'll then again show the types of pipes that are water supply and what they're going to clash with. So if this pipe crosses any of these items, it'll place a hole. This can be imported and exported as well, just like the rest of the settings. Back up under interference, you can click clash now, and all you need is the member of a panel. Choose the one that you want to run, click OK, and you'll get a nice little pop-up saying 4 holes were punched, and you can see I get holes where my pipe was. If the pipe changed locations, again, you'll just go up under, say remove existing holes. It will tell you it processed the panel, the holes are gone, the pipe moved, you rerun it, your holes are there. The whole point of this is to get these holes so that you can CNC these directly to one of the roll forming machines. That is all set up in the top here through our wall CNCs. I have a couple loaded right now. With a member being selected, if I were to choose Howick, for instance, we'll just show you the sample window. It literally is click and point. You tell it to generate a new CNC file. We have a viewer for Howick that will actually give you a visual check of where the holes, the dimples, the swages, the lip cuts, and the notches are. You tell it where to save. You don't have to do the view right away. You can actually save this and then load a view later. But then you just set up the settings for your machine, and all you do is click OK, and it literally spits out an Excel file, a CSV that you can literally put on a USB key, walk over to the machine, load it into the machine, and start producing your studs. Very quick, very easy process. We do have multiple types of CNC machines that we support. If there isn't one that is there that you currently have, we can look at getting it supported for you, as long as the controller gives us access to the schema of the machine. So that is basically a whole ton about the walls and MWF. We do also have floors, roofs, and trusses. I'll quickly here just show you a floor and a couple of the items in floors. This floor seems to be a little too large to panelize, so I'm just going to draw in a model line real quick. And what we're going to use the model line for is we're going to actually use the model line to cut the floor. So we're going to pick the plane, and we're going to draw our line, and I'm just going to probably put it anywhere and draw it straight out. So you grab your floor, you grab your line, we go to Pro, and then I'm going to switch my tab to my floor module to get my floor commands. I'm now going to use one called Floor Cutter. It will analyze where this line is, and typically instead of going in, edit boundary, moving it over, copy the floor, move the other shape, this will actually just say, hey, I want to put a 10-inch floor, I want to delete the original, I click OK, it's going to split this into 2, you can remove your line. You now have 2 separate floor panels that were originally there without having to do all the modifications. So we're going to frame this one here real quick. We're just going to go up under Pro, and we're going to click Create. And again, this is very similar to the walls. You actually get some templates available to you. So I'm going to choose my light gauge, click Create. This will create some boundary nodes at each corner. I do get a gimbal that will give me my orientation of my joists, and I get a tag. If I grab the tag and go up under Properties, I can actually see what this template had available to us. You can do names, you can change the position of where the members are in the floor, you can add a spacing benchmark, you can also control how openings are handled, whether they're rim supported or joist supported. Under member properties, you have your tracks, your end joists, your side tracks. We'll go into joists for a second. You can set your spacing here for joists. You have your first joist offset, you have your angle, and then you can decide on how you want your joists to be. Right now we have a single joist. You can do double joists, triple, face to face, back to back. And as you see the letters indicate here as to which one. If I chose back to back, member A is available to me and member B is available to me to be able to change. So I'll just go back up to single and click OK. I will just click OK on this, and this is now going to quickly just frame the floor. So as you can see, I have just a simple floor joists. If I grab my UCS here and say rotate, and I'm just going to show you as an example of 45 degrees, and then if I click my regenerate, all my joists will be rotated on the 45 degree of this panel. So you can actually just rotate one item and away they go. We can do sheathing as well on the floors. It's just a setting under the properties. If I have the panel selected still. No, I didn't have the panel selected, so we'll just select the panel, and I'll show you where the sheathing settings are. You would just go under properties, and there will be a box or an icon to click on that would say sheathing. So you go under edits and sheathing. You enable top or bottom, set it up, give it your sizes. You can determine your pattern. You can even do the staggering offset, and then it'll apply sheathing right on top. I know I'm missing one family to be able to do it. I'm missing my cutter. I could drop it on, but it would put your sheathing on and lay it out accordingly. So floors act very similar to the walls. In the roofs, we do have some trusses that we can do for you. In the advanced metal software, we can engineer a truss for you. In the Pro Metal, we just give you the profile with no engineering so that you can give it to an engineer. As a quick example, I'll just grab my roof and we'll go over and we'll switch to our truss module. I'm going to click on my create. I'm going to choose supports. So I have a wall, I have a beam there, and I have another beam here. Once they're selected, I'm just not going to worry about a cantilever offset. I'm going to choose where I want to start my trusses, and I'm going to choose where I want to end my trusses. And I'm going to do a large spacing just for the sake of time. And this is going to create my envelopes from this roof for the trusses to be able to hand off to an engineer to analyze. As you can see here, I'll isolate one just to show you. Isolate element. So this is literally just a group of model lines. So if you wanted to edit this, you can actually just change the lines. We're not going to do that. We're just going to go back in and click create, and this will open up the truss designer. I have it set up for a wall truss right now. It's in feet, inches, and 1/16 of an inch for a roof. It's a wall truss, 1 ply. I can determine my webbing settings, my member sizes, top chord, bottom chord, webbing, heels, physical members, and then I have designer preferences. I'm just going to leave it as default to show you as an example. We're going to click OK. It will bring up my truss designer. So I'm going to click on top here and just go click on generate web, and I get an automatic web. If I don't like how this is webbed, I can actually just flip things around. I can actually just use delete to delete them out. You can redo this, you can clear it out, you can draw new ones in. So I like it the way it is. I just click OK, and it will now go through. I'll click auto rename, and it's going to create the representation of this truss. That's fine. So there's a representation of the first truss. Again, you would then give this to an engineer so that they'd be able to analyze this and see whether it would pass or fail. Our advanced metal software can do that for you. The multiples that are back here, you could actually do it so that it would actually duplicate this all the way across the rest. We do have options to do common trusses, valley trusses, hips. We can do all the different items that we have, and we have shop drawings as well. Just a quick touch on those there. So we're looking through here. Those are basically the majority of MWF at a quick glance. We're going to move over to the R18 version of a file that I have to be able to show you some shop drawings in metric. So this is a file I already created. Some of you might recognize this. It was from the Autodesk University that we did last year. I'm just going to grab 2 panels here, and I'm going to go up under my shop drawings, and I'm going to choose the layout that I like. So I'm going to use my AU 2018 Wing 4. I'm going to click Generate, and this is going to create a 17 and an 18 here in my list. And I'll show you how they get created to the level that they get created at, and then I'll show you an example of one that I spent like 2 minutes just modifying. As of showing you the R18, with the release of Revit 2020 coming out, we support back 3 years. So we'll be ending support for Revit 2016. The oldest version we'll support will be Revit 2017. So panel 17 is right here. So this is how the shop drawing came out with me not even making a modification. I do have a section on here because I was playing around with stuff earlier, but you would just go in and either turn things on or turn off, hide and view, make your changes that you need to make. We're going to move this down, put it proper into the page. You can move, clicked one too many, move the title up. So you have to make a few modifications as to where things are. Our schedules here, we have this has been adjusted in later releases. I'll just move it over. You can see here that you get everything labeled, the member size, its length, and its weight. And you'll see that the labels coordinate with the drawing. We do have a 3D on here as well, and then the ordinate floor plan. So if I go to one that I'd already done before and touched up, this is my panel 19. You can see here I've got my nice schedule. I've adjusted my dimensions so that things didn't override each other, and I made a few little adjustments to where some of the tags are in the layout. You can produce multiple shop drawings at one time. As you've seen, I did 17 and 18. You can highlight basically all your project and say create shop drawings, and you can go out, come back, and they will produce for you. I've done 157 panels in like an hour, and that's including modifying them to make them prettier. So we have the capability to do this. In the multi-layer drawings, which would include your sheathing, you do get an actual Revit schedule. This schedule here is just text being created by our software. But in the multi-layer, it looks very similar, other than this would be an actual Revit schedule, and you would see some sheathing, however you want to show it on your panel, and you would also see it on your floor plans. Title blocks and everything else are totally editable. You can just change the family as you see fit. You can put your own logos. This was just what we had for there. So that basically is MWF in a nutshell. We'll set us off at this point for now. So I'm just going to move back to my 2019. I'm going to bring up the thank you for today's webinar. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of us at info@struxoffsolutions.com. We can set up other live demos for you at your convenience with our calendar. So we encourage you to take a look at our other products and reach out to us to set up one-on-one demos with any member of our technical team. Our technicians will be able to take you through how to build and how MWF as well as our CNC modules can benefit your next project. This would be the email address just to get a hold of anyone real quickly. And thank you again. Hopefully you enjoyed the webinar, and look forward to possibly giving you some more one-on-one demos. Thank you very much, and we will just end the webinar with that. That one right there.